Welcome to the With You Rugby podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started.
Hello, everyone. I am Jon Hinkin, President and CEO of the US Rugby Foundation, and welcome to another With You podcast. As we get into the summer, we're getting closer to the 2025 Hall of Fame ceremony presented by Major League Rugby, and we want to get to know the inductees a little better. I have with me a very special guest, an old teammate of mine, a longtime friend of mine, Tony Ridnell, better known around the rugby world as TR, and we want to get to know TR a little bit better. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, well, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So you've had a remarkable rugby journey overall. It's actually unique, I think, in the American Eagle player pool world of rugby. So tell us, you grew up on the other side of the world. And
so I was born in New York City, but at age 10, my family moved for 3 years to Australia, to Sydney, Australia. And, we left kicking and screaming because we didn't want to leave. And
you didn't want to leave New York?
I can tell you 3 years later, when we were time to leave Australia, we were kicking and screaming because I was so well entrenched in like those Commonwealth type sports, cricket, rugby, swimming, which is the Australian national sport. But rugby was really what got me hooked into sort of my social scene as an elementary school kid, as the new American. And, just playing rugby with the guys, they didn't care if you were American, or African or whatever, it's just made friends. And it was just a great way to introduce myself to a new country, new continent. And to this day, thanks to Facebook, a couple of the guys still are friends. It's amazing. So I started playing rugby. I started playing rugby when I was 10, 11 years old and played for 2 or 3 years in Australia as a kid. And absolutely just loved it. And then moved back to the States for 8th grade and played soccer, goalkeeper. That's how I got into West Point, playing soccer. And then wrestled and played baseball, which I loved. So, but getting back into rugby was when I got into West Point, getting back into rugby that's where the significant change was.
Nice. Going back to Australia, you played it at school. So was it a school program?
Absolutely. It's a school program. Like back in the day, we had school programs. There wasn't any amalgamated clubs. Each school had their own team with your own jerseys and socks, and and our school we were a small little Mossman preparatory school, preparatory for high school. So this was our equivalent of sixth grade, basically. So that's where I was playing rugby, was in 6th grade. So each school had their own team. We actually had 3 15s. So there was a first 15, second 15, third 15 for a very small prep school of maybe 100 boys. So that takes up 45 kids minimum if you have 3 15s. And then I went for a year and a half. I went to the Cranbrook School in Vaucluse, just a beautiful school, and played rugby there as well for the 13 Bs, and then the 14 As for a couple of games, and then we moved back here. So it was very organized. Each you had your regular schools that you played around the neighborhood. The one vivid memory I have of playing rugby at Rawson Oval in Sydney for Mossman Prep was maybe my first or second game. And we were playing a team called Newington College. And I'll never forget it because they wore black and white hoops. And the biggest kid on the team got the ball. And he was running straight at me. And here I am, this like scared little, 11-year-old. And, at that time, you got to make a decision. You're going to tackle the guy or not, and I'll always tell the story that I tackled the guy. But that was just a moment I just remember of it's just the first character building opportunity that rugby gives you. It's just the opportunity to physically front up.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think we've all had that exact moment in
Egg.
rugby, and it's
Amen. Absolutely.
do
I
I want to
remember it.
play this
Oh
game or
yeah.
not?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
get your answer real quick.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Yes, sir.
And you, I'm sure, even as a younger person, were probably a bigger guy.
Yeah,
You know,
I was tall, real thin, real thin, real thin. I was a rail until I was about 22. Um, I got up to about 6'6", 210 pounds. Um, and I'll maybe fast forward a little bit. I got a call from Jack Clark, who was the coach, who coached me. I was probably 24, 25 years old at that time. He coached me on some rep teams. He called me up and said, TR, um, you should really consider putting on some weight and being able to, not only play in the back row, but to play second row, and we talked about it, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, for me, that was a life-changing moment in my rugby career, that phone call. Jack probably doesn't even remember it.
oh,
Because he's
he
made a
does.
million of those phone calls. But he said, hey, TR, for your career, if you want to get picked on the teams, man, you need to make yourself more versatile, because you're never going to be the top dog number 8. You're never going to be the top dog flanker. You're not, you're never going to be the top dog lock. But if you can play all 3 of those positions, you can get on every team that's going anywhere. So that's a little bit fast forward, but that's what happened.
No, but that's great advice because, I believe rugby is, if you're a multi-sport athlete, and you were a multi-sport
Yep.
athlete, that's the advantage. You can adapt to all of those different positions. You can adapt to all the athleticism that's needed for
Yep.
all those positions. I mean,
Yep.
you had your basketball, your baseball, your wrestling,
Yep.
you were tackling, you were throwing, you were running, so I think you were well prepared.
I remember doing some drills at the Eagle level, kind of hand-to-hand combat stuff, wrestle the ball, stuff like that. And the skills that you could bring from the sport of wrestling into that, you could tell the guys who wrestled and you could tell the guys who didn't. I mean, it was quite clear. I think that's a whole different conversation. The whole multi-sport versus single sport in high school. Thing. I'm grateful I got to play a number of sports, including stuff in Australia like cricket, which is just a fantastic game. I might be the only American that really understands it, but no, grateful to have all those opportunities. And even now I'm getting to row. I row with my son and crew.
Yeah.
Well, I don't row with him, but he wouldn't have me. But we're involved in the same sport out of the same boathouse, and that's been great too.
Yeah, once an athlete, always an athlete.
Well, that's actually, John. I was fortunate to be able to retire professionally about four years ago when I was 60, and I've been rowing since that time. I found rowing at that time 4 years ago, and then recently I got injured. I injured my shoulder, so I've been out for about 4 or 5 months. I rode for the first time yesterday, for the first time in 4 or 5 months. But I've taken up cycling like it's my job, and
there you go.
And the way, the way I've been putting it is like, I loved being a businessman. I mean, it was great, but I really love being an athlete. And I'm treating myself like an athlete. I'm eating, doing all the things, eating, sleeping, hydrating, all the things, stuff that we never knew about back in our day, right? I mean, recovery? What's recovery? Oh, that's having 2 beers instead of 6. I mean,
You had to be responsible. That was it. You knew you had to get up. We keep jumping ahead because
I'm sorry. Sorry.
You have so much to talk about. You truly are. I mean, a volume of information. But so you come back to the U.S. after Australia,
right?
And that's the high school years.
Yep, those are high school years. I was a soccer player. I played goalkeeper. Loved that. Wrestled. Loved that. That's again, a sport where there's nowhere to hide. Just like rugby, in rugby, there's nowhere to hide. Unlike any other real contact sport, ball sport, rugby's so unique in that way. And in wrestling, of course, there's nowhere to hide. So, it builds sort of maybe this self-confidence or this ability to say, hey, I want to take things on head on. I want to front up and take things on head on. Whether that's, physically or maybe mentally, whether it's in business or in relationships or anything.
Well, that's probably that sort of focus and that determination is probably what led you to West Point. Yeah.
I think so. You know,
Yeah.
I was I wasn't the greatest high school student. You know, I cared a lot more about my batting average than I did about my grades. But then you come to the realization in 11th grade, 12th grade, you know, if you want to go to college, you want to go somewhere. And I wanted to go to a place, I wanted to go to a place with a name, you know, and um, where you know, when you graduate, you know, you can walk out and be proud of the name of the place you graduated from, and people know it, and that sort of thing. That was just important to me at the time. It may not be as important now, but to me at that time it was important. But the problem for me was those big name schools didn't want to have me. So uh, um, West Point actually recruited me. Soccer coach Joe Malone, who had been there for 30 or 40 years, he was the plebe boxing coach when I got there. Just a legend of a guy. He recruited me. And I went up to visit, and I sort of looked at the cadets and looked at everything. You know, everyone looked like they had their act together. And I said, man, this place is for me. This could turn my potential into productivity, you know. And
Yeah.
that's kind of why I was excited to go when I got into West Point and got to go.
Well, it certainly seemed to have done that because as you get out of West Point, you're an officer, yeah,
Yeah.
and the world is ahead of you. So, what are your choices at that point?
Well, you know, at that point, so at West Point, right at the end of my time at West Point, I got picked to play in my first representative game, which
For
was
rugby.
for rugby, which was the
Yeah.
ERU, Eastern Rugby Union, back in the day when we had the 4 territories. The Eastern Rugby Union under 23s, and they were going to play in the Saranac Lake tournament. And I had no idea what representative rugby was, but I got a call from Mike Machado. I don't know if Mike's still alive, but if you are Mike and you happen to hear this, I'm so grateful for you. I mention your name always. And Mike was a fan of mine, you know, and he picked me for the team, or you know, if they needed 5 players, he picked me as one of the 5 players from our union. And I went up to Saranac Lake, not knowing what to expect, and having been at West Point for 4 years, where you're sort of socially reduced, um, you know, I got to participate in this 4 or 5 days. You know, we had a couple of days of practice, and then we played in the tournament. But I got to participate with just the greatest guys. I mean, we had so much fun, and like it was at that moment in Saranac Lake in the must have been the summer of September of 1982,
Yeah.
where rugby was just it just clicked for me, and that's where I first found out that there was really a national team and there was a pathway.
There you go.
Well, that's a word we might talk about in another conversation as well, pathway. But there was a pathway to play for the national team, and it was very clear and very precise. And I remember at that tournament in Saranac Lake, I met Gary Lambert for the first time and got to watch him play. He was playing for the Louisiana Exiles. And Gary was the Eagle number 8, which was my position at the time. And obviously, you know, I tried to follow him and watch him, and it was pretty cool years later to become friends with Gary, you know, and have, you know, that guy that I just totally looked up to and idolized, to become friends with and get to play a couple of games with and beat Canada with in 1989.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. 88. Excuse me, 88.
Oh, yeah. There we go. We'd love to do that again this coming
Yes, we
summer.
would. Well, that should probably happen.
It's another big game against Canada.
Absolutely.
And so you focused on rugby after, you know, no more soccer, basketball. You're now focused on rugby going forward. You have a pathway. I'm sure you got a call at some point. You know, the voice of Jack Clark coming over, the voice of Bing Dawson coming over back in the day.
I graduated in '82. I got stationed at Fort Sill, and I played for the Fort Sill Gunners.
Famous Fort Sill Gunners.
1982. The red and white, And then I moved. I got stationed in Hawaii for my first tour. The first year I was in Hawaii, I played for the University of Hawaii. But the
Okay.
team that was really the team for me, and I kind of looked at them out of the corner of my eye, was the Hawaii Harlequins.
Yeah.
And after one season with the UH in 1984, I switched and played for the Hawaii Harlequins, and that was a game changer for me. One, socially, the Hawaii Harlequins were just amazing. They attracted players from all over the world, and I'm talking top players. Michael Jones from New Zealand played there. Murray Mexted from New Zealand played there. A number of Wallabies played there. A number of Eagles, moved out there. Chris O'Brien moved out there for a year. So it was just a high level of rugby, but the social aspect with the Hawaii Harlequins was fantastic. They loved to tour. They loved to host teams. And for me, being in the Army, again, kind of socially, you're just really insulated socially. Yeah. For me, this was just a social pathway to just having just a great time. And I have friends to this day from the Hawaii Harlequins. I wasn't able to make it to the last reunion, but the reunion 5 or 6 years ago just was absolutely off the hook. I mean, we just had so much fun, and the memories. And thankfully, Facebook allows us to post memories that each day someone's posting something, and just really fond memories.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, the Harlequins were famous for, they were almost like a barbarian side.
No, absolutely, it was amazing. And then and so my experience with the Harlequins was really positive, and a name that should never be forgotten in U.S. rugby history or U.S. sports history is John Wilbur. John really championed me, and Ron Watson from Texas, who lives in Texas now, he was the president of the Harlequins then. They both really championed me, and John, I know, pushed for me to get my first Eagle trial in 1985. And I was probably a little young, a little inexperienced, and even though I was 24, I hadn't played much, high-level rugby. Although, I tried and tried, and so for those trials, I got as fit as I could, and I was the fittest guy at the 1985 trials, and as a miracle, I made the team to tour Japan. I mean, I came out of nowhere. I didn't know any of the guys on the team at that time. Wow. I mean, I just came out of nowhere. So it was a little early. I didn't play well on that tour, and it was a tough tour to assimilate. There was like 13 guys from the old Blues. They were really tight. Hard to break in. A couple of guys were real nice, but it was tough to break in socially. And I remember that the experience for other players later on, when I was more sort of socially entrenched in the team and more of a regular fixture, where it got, it's tough for new guys to break in. Not only you need to show it on the field, but you need to be a decent guy as well. And be a teammate and all those things. So John Wilbur just really championed me in the mid '80s to get to that team, and I could never thank him enough. And he's unfortunately no longer with us.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, at that point, really, your only select side big time team would have been the combined services before you got that call. Yeah,
that's right. Well, that's right. So in 1984. Dick Baddock, Dick Baddock, rest in peace. Harry Laws, C.J. Colson, Jerry Gallion, those guys all put their heads together to create the U.S. Combined Services team. And I think we did a trials or something in the Battle of New Orleans. And then in subsequent years, the Combined Services would meet at the Battle of New Orleans. So I got to play in the Battle of New Orleans for the Combined Services about 4 times.
There you go.
And I got to tour with Combined Services in 84, 86, and 88 to the UK. And I mean, if there were ever the fondest memories I had in terms of just laughter and guys and just doing the thing, touring and all that represents, that Combined Services experience was awesome. And that just earlier this year, the Combined Services that was resurrected and went on a tour to the UK, and I hope they had half as much fun as we did. And of course, you never remember the game. You don't remember the games. You just remember the guys. And some of my best friends, Dennis Purcell, Bob DeStaffney, just wonderful, wonderful guys that have been friends for my whole life now, which has just been a
Yeah.
really, really cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you keep bringing that up, and we'll touch on that, later on. But the core values of the sport we chose, they resonate through life, and it's you said it well. To really be at the top player, there's talented player all over the place, but to really be a top player, you need to be the teammate, and you need to give everything, not for yourself but for all of the other guys on your team on the field every moment. And so that, again, that is instilled in all of us. It goes through our veins
Yep.
every day. You then got on, yeah, you said you got on the Eagles, and then you were there for a while.
Yeah. So 85 was really was awesome. I mean, for me, the Japan tour was great. Uh, as a new player. But again, I struggled. I struggled on the field, and didn't really, didn't come out away from the tour with any new best friends or anything like that. So I struggled. And the next year and a half, I didn't really do much at the national level. 86, I just didn't get picked. And then in the build up to the 1987 World Cup, there was a sequence of games where Dan Hickey, the president of the Pacific Coast Grizzlies, put together a team called the Black Bears as sort of an invitation team, and we got to play the Eagles that had been selected to go to the first inaugural World Cup in Australia and New Zealand in the fall of 1987. So this would have been April, May, June of 1987. And I got to play for the Black Bears against the Eagles, against the guys that had already been picked. And John, in those series of 2 or 3 games, I mean, every ball bounced in my direction. Every pass came to me, every line. I mean, it was, sometimes you just get in good form,
Yeah.
And I just happened to be in really good form for those games. And I got picked to be a reserve as the Eagles went up later in the summer to play Canada and British Columbia, and I got to play in the Eagles B team,
Right.
Against British Columbia, while the Eagle A team played against Canada as they prepared to go to the World Cup. And this was up in Vancouver, and I was living in Seattle, so I just met them up there. And again, I had an incredible game against British Columbia. And I was playing number 8. Mark Deaton was playing number 6. And I was playing number 6. Mark Deaton was playing number 8. And this is against British Columbia. And I remember Mark taking the ball around the base of the scrum. And he got absolutely crushed by this guy from British Columbia as he dished the ball off to me, and I got to score the try. So Mark got crushed. I scored the try. And what happened on the way home was pretty crazy. So we're on the bus ride on the way back to Seattle from Vancouver with the Eagles. So this is the Eagle World Cup team, and then me, because they were just going to drop me off in Seattle. And so in Ferndale, Washington, which was Jeff Lombard's home, the bus stopped. The bus stopped at the Scottish Lodge. It's not like I don't remember every second of this happening. So the bus stopped at the Scottish Lodge, and the 3 coaches got out. And we're all on the bus not knowing what's going on. And the 3 coaches are in a pretty heated discussion about something. We don't know what it is. 10 minutes later, they come back on the bus and they go, Mark Deaton, could you come out? Could you come off? Mark was one of the old school, old Blues guys. Cal Berkeley, he'd been playing for the Eagles for 5 or 6 years, and he was a great rugby player. Talk about a guy that could put it on the line. Mark Deaton, wow.
Yeah.
And he said, Mark, could you come off the bus? Tony Ridnell, could you come off the bus? And like the whole bus goes silent. No one knows what's going on.
Oh, no.
And the team had just been given their new kit, the bright red Land's End bag and T-shirts and boots and socks and jackets. And I mean, that was back in the amateur days. So when you got a free pair of shoes, man, that was like Christmas, right? 3 T-shirts that said the Eagles. Yes, you know that was our pay, and I'd do it. I would do it today for the same thing, man. You know that we'll talk about
Double your
professionalism
wardrobe.
at some point. So anyway, the coach said, "Mark, could you get your bags out from under the bus? We've decided we're going to take Tony to the World Cup."
Wow.
Did you know that story? Have you heard? Did I ever tell you?
Nope.
So they said
Wow.
we're going to take Tony to the World Cup, and so Mark has like 13 Old Blues teammates on the bus that are playing for the Eagles at the time, and they're tight. They're 7-time national champions. I mean, they're tight. All went to Cal, socially tight. That was the longest 2 hours, maybe, of my entire life. And Mark and I are literally sitting next to each other on the bus. I mean, we played the same position, and I totally, respected him, admired him as a player. It was incredible. And so I'm on the bus, just like my heart's racing, like I'm going to the World Cup. I'm going to the World Cup. I'm going to the World Cup. But I've got Mark 2 seats over, just I'm sure was in tears, and if he wasn't in tears outside, he was in tears inside. And that was just brutal. So, what that was quite an experience. So I got Mark Deaton's kit to go to the World Cup. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine?
That is
incredible.
Incredible.
So again, I wasn't going to be on the top side, but we played 3 games at that World Cup. We beat Japan in the first game. The first game the U.S. Eagles ever played in the World Cup in 1987, we beat Japan. And then I got to play in the second game against Australia, who were the top dogs in the world at the time. They very well could have won that tournament. New Zealand ended up winning it. But to play against the Wallabies was incredible. David Campese, Simon Poitevin, Michael Lina, they all played. I mean, it was their A team. There was no, let's play the reserves. It was their A team. And it was my first test. It was also the first game I ever played at flanker. So my first test, I played tight side flanker, number 6. It was the first. So, not only was I just completely, absolutely, let's just say nervous as heck, just to play the game. I needed to learn a new position pretty quick too. So, Steve Finkel, who was playing open side that day, was. And later became my teammate and coach at the Sevens, and your coach. We toured many times with Finks. He was the best teammate you could possibly ask for. Yeah. He came over to me and just, we talked for 15 or 20 minutes. He wouldn't remember that, I'm sure, but I remember it like it was yesterday, man. And he calmed me down, and we had a good game. We were beaten by a lot less than we were expected to be beaten by. It was 43-9 or something like that. We scored a try, but it was a great memory. And then so from that time on, I got to play for the Eagles a lot. It was just a great run from 87 to basically 90, 91, and then to 93.
Yeah. And that's a lot of 15s. And back in those days, back in the 1900s when we were playing, there weren't a whole lot of international test matches, so you had Canada and maybe one other a year kind of thing. And so really, to get your all your caps that you got was it did show to some longevity. And on the 15 side, and then how did you transition over to Sevens? Because you were an incredibly successful Sevens player as well.
Well, it was thank you, John. Back in the day, I mean, Sevens was was more of just kind of a game you played in the summer, to stay fit and whatever. And there were some great Sevens tournaments around the world, Melrose, Lisbon, Uruguay, that just had traditional Sevens tournaments. And that all ultimately morphed into what is now the World Series Sevens, Hong Kong Sevens. I was able to play in Hong Kong 4 times. That was, as an American rugby player back then, where in club rugby, we'd be lucky to be playing in front of, your mom and your family, right? And a couple of dogs, right? A couple of dogs running around on the field. to go to Hong Kong in front of 35,000 people and stand there after the game for half an hour signing autographs. Yeah. As an American rugby player, that was the pinnacle. I mean, it was just the way we were treated off the field, the way the expats, treated us, dinners, and just the whole thing, getting to meet the top players in the world. And it wasn't separate. The top 15 players just played sevens. The top guys got to get picked there. So
if you were a player,
it was a different mindset. It was all the same sport back then, just two different codes. Now it's literally evolving into two different sports. And that really is driven by the Olympics, isn't it? The sevens. So in 1986, as I was stationed back at Fort Sill, I decided not to play for Fort Sill, but I played for Oklahoma University. And I got to play with just some great players: David Jenkinson, Larry Nafee, Larry Sims, the Tresmer brothers, Mike DeJong, just some incredible. We had a great sevens team. And so I drive up there, 140 miles round trip, 3 or 4 times a week to practice and then play. And that was sort of my entry into the USA level sevens. And I loved playing sevens. This is before my knee. I injured my knee really badly in 1989. But before that, I actually was pretty fast and pretty fit. And because of my experience in other games, like being a goalkeeper in soccer, I had really good ball skills, really good hands. And having played rugby in Australia as a kid, we did you practiced every position, and you practiced kicking with both feet as a kid, 10, 11. Yeah. So I could kick pretty good, and both for goal and for touch, and for a lot of teams until I was, till mid 1980s, I kicked for touch for all my teams: West Point, the Gunners, Combined Services. And then I decided, you might as well, you should probably use your energy for other things other than kicking if you're playing second row. But so that kind of got me propelled. The OU experience, which was just fantastic. Norman, Oklahoma is just a mecca for rugby. It's just a fantastic place to play rugby. What they've built there, John Bealey and those guys, and have continued to do is just outstanding. Can't say enough about it. So Emil Cygnus was the national team coach at the time, and Emil picked me for a team to play in the Bethlehem Highlander games or something like that. And so I got to play with, it was basically the Eagles, and Mike Ciano played, Mark Williams, Barry Williams, all the top players. And from that point on, Emil just kept picking me. It was just awesome. So I got to play in 4 Hong Kong sevens. I got to play in the inaugural World Cup. Got to go to the inaugural Fiji tournament, where it was the biggest sporting event in Fiji history up until that time. Did you go on that tour, John? You did, yeah.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. Met the Prime Minister. You may not remember, but Chris O'Brien scored that try. We're beating Fiji 5-0 in that first game, and they kind of licked us 45-5. But hey, we were in front. We got to play in Canberra that year. We got to go to Hong Kong, and then we played in Edinburgh for the World Cup. That was just an amazing run of sevens. Yeah. And but to take it to a new level, the thing that got me going in sevens was our program at Old Puget Sound Beach. And I can't, I could never talk about my rugby without mentioning Dave Bateman, who was the captain and coach of the US of the Old Puget Sound sevens team.
And he was on those tours as well.
He came on many tours. Pound for pound, you'd hardly meet a tougher guy. But mentally, from a competitive aspect, Dave Bateman was just the catalyst for what we had going at Old Puget Sound Beach, and the players sort of reacted to that. So Dave was the kind of guy where if after the game, you didn't have the greatest game, and he looked at you wrong, you just felt like a beaten puppy dog, and all you wanted to do was go out and play again so you could play well and get a good smile from him, And I think that's one of the ultimate things you can talk about coaches. Jack Clark's like that, right? it doesn't even need to be said if you played well or not. You know, he just gives you a glance. You know what he's thinking. And with Dave Bateman, it was the same thing. And we practiced harder than we played. I mean, it was the definition.
Oh, yeah.
On the Thursdays, we would play our B team, who was incredible. Our B team was fantastic and so competitive and pushed us so hard. We would play 7 rounds of 7 minutes on Thursday afternoons, and then we'd play in the tournament on Saturday. The tournament would be easy compared to what practices were. So that sort of taught me a lot of, you know, it just allowed me to gain more exposure at the national level. Was our success on the 7 side. So here I had, you know, the 15s that I had, you know, a different pathway, and now with the 7s, I was at the national level there too. So very grateful. You know, I was able to play in the first 3 World Cups, the two 15s and 7s, and I think Brian Vizard and Gary Hine and I think are the only 3 that have done that. Because now I don't, you know, it'd be very difficult to play in a 15s World Cup and a 7s World Cup,
right?
Because of the separation. No, so the experience at Old Puget Sound Beach was just fantastic. I mean, as a team, there wasn't much social about us. We didn't hang out off the field. We just got together 3 days a week for practice and on weekends and just looked at each other and like, okay, we're going to get after it, you know. And it was just a special team, you know. You at Onback, you know this, John. You know, you guys had some special teams where you just clicked and it was magical. Yeah. And that's what we had on the 7s at Old Puget Sound Beach. It was just magical. And
you knew the road to the championship was going to go through you guys.
Exactly. You asked me about, you know, kind of some players I looked up to. I remember the first year I played for the Hawaii Harlequins, which was 84 or 85, and Alan Mexted was up there in the off season. This is Murray's brother.
Right.
He was up there in the off season to stay fit to play for Wellington, and Alan very well could have been an All Black. He had some bad ankle injuries, but the way he trained, like I thought I was fit and I thought I knew what hard training was. The way he trained was unbelievable, and I just tried to keep up with him. And you know, at each level, your fitness gets more and more and more and more. And even today, you know, you can tell the teams they still have room to get fitter. You know, that's the one thing that can equalize anything in rugby. Your size, your experience, anything. You just have that fitness. And in a complete coincidence, the University of Oklahoma rugby coach from South Africa, Blikkies Grunewald, stayed with me at my home in Hawaii in 1984 for a few weeks. And he took me. He was a world-class coach. He took me out, world-class player. He took me out on some training runs, and you know, I thought I knew what training hard was, and you know, it was just a joke from what I was doing. So, just being able to be exposed to those type of people at the Hawaii Harlequins, like we discussed, you know, world-class rugby guys from a fitness perspective, the mental perspective, things like that.
Yeah, it one leads to the other. You have to have one to get to the other. So incredible career, obviously. It's 7s, 15s, the whole 9 yards. After you're done, you hang up the boots internationally.
Ooh.
Everybody has to do it.
Oh man, dark days. Days.
Did you stay playing club or focus more and bring all of your focus and energy to what was a very successful business life?
Well, I had that knee injury in '89, and you know, I never played 100% after that. I mean, I faked it pretty well, but I never was 100. You know, I never was what I could have been, and that's kind of one small regret I have. I had a total knee replacement here 8 years ago now. It's the best thing you could possibly do. For anyone listening to this or watching, you'll know if you need a knee or a hip replacement, and if you do, go get it because life afterwards is a million times better. And so you know, I remember running onto the field at Twickenham, and my knee was just was on fire. playing hurt. And so I didn't miss that. Yeah, I didn't miss that part, but I definitely, after I kind of self-selected myself off the Eagles for sure. There was no retirements in those days. You just kind of fell off.
Your phone stopped ringing.
Yeah, I got to play in Jack's first game. So my last game was Jack's first game, and that was a good transition for me. And I was done. There were probably better picks than me for that game. So I had started a business with David Bruck, who's a rugby guy for Old Puget Sound Beach. Some things happened. One thing led to another. I started my own business in 1994, literally a month after I stopped playing club rugby. So I stopped playing international rugby in 93, and then I played the 94-95 season with Old Puget Sound Beach, just playing club. And that was my most enjoyable club season. There was no pressure to play for the Eagles. And by pressure, I mean selection pressure. Yeah. You remember those days. The selection is the one thing you don't miss. Am I going to get picked? Any player that's experienced that knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I didn't have that pressure. And so I was just able to enjoy playing a club rugby season. And we had a great year. And in coincidence, we played in the semifinals of the Pacific Coast Championships. And you probably played in that game, John. But it was the first time that I ever played against Ombak. It was my last club game. And I'd be remiss in saying it was the first time I ever played against Bill Leversey.
The chief.
And Bill and I, Bill was my best friend during the rugby years, for sure, for at least a decade. And of course, he's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame the same year. So we are just delighted. It's reignited our friendship. It's been fantastic. Bill and I are known colloquially as the Chief Brothers.
Yes.
And to be a Chief Brother, the first requirement is you have to have very thin legs.
Yes.
So you have to tall with thin legs. But the Chief Brothers are back. We're being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, which has just been magnificent. And so that's been great. But so I got to play my last club game. I got to play against Ombak and Bill, and it was just great. And I think we both earned a lot. We both gained a lot of respect for each other. I'm sure we whacked each other once or twice just for love.
Guys.
And Ombak beat us that game, and that was my last game. My mother had passed away maybe a month before.
Wow.
And so this transition in mid 1994 was, my mother had passed away. I left the Army. I was starting a new business and stopped playing rugby. So that was a pretty tumultuous time on the emotional side, for sure.
Right.
And so I just put all my effort into my work. And 3 or 4 years later, I started TR International. Founded that in 1988. 1991. And then I had that for 30 years. Had TRI for 30 years, and I sold it to Megan Gluth, who was working for me. And she's now taken TR International. She's renamed it to Catalent Industries. It's now the largest privately owned LGBTQ company in the state of Washington. So, starting from nothing in the late 80s, early 90s to where that company is now is a real, it's just a pleasure for me to sort of see where she's been able to take it.
That's fantastic.
And the reason I talk about my business is early on, my right-hand man was a rugby player, Roland Morgan. Austin Britz we hired. Sam King we hired, who played for Old Puget Sound Beach. So I coached Old Puget Sound in '95, the year after I retired. Our team, our 15s team, sort of everyone retired, and there was a whole new crew of players. Coach left, and Roland came into my office one day and said, "Tony, man, we need a coach. We've only had 7 guys out last night."
Oh my goodness!
So I said, "All right, let's go." And I picked up the whistle for the next year or so, coaching a team, which was just awesome. But the problem is I still felt like I could play.
Oh, yeah.
And so so it's so hard to do. A coach player should never meet, in terms, there should never be a thought that one could be the other. And I was it was too soon to my playing days.
Yeah.
So, I think the guys from OPSB from that era, I think we sort of laugh now, but we worked hard. We definitely worked hard, but I wasn't the nicest. I wasn't the nicest coach. I had very, very high standards for us. But we did some good things on the rugby field for sure.
Right. Now were you part of the Super League back then?
No. Right. Just as the Super League was coming in, that's when I started my own business, and that was taking off, and I really needed, I just didn't have time. I had to exit rugby because of the, just the time, not necessarily the raw time commitment, but the consistent time commitment.
Yeah. When
you're founding a business like that and just starting and getting off the ground, you can't say, I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss 2 or 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, and on the weekends, you got to be working at that time. So,
yeah.
So, it's sort of a couple of decades went by, and we can fast forward, so I got my business off the ground, grew the business, hired a number of rugby players. I mean, Chris Liddell, I think it was, who was the former CFO of Microsoft, but he was also on the New Zealand Rugby Board. He wrote a great article of why I hire rugby players, and I hadn't seen that before I started hiring rugby players. But, in rugby, you learn how to win and lose. You learn how to lose, get up and try again. You learn how to win humbly, right? If you're not humble in rugby, you're toast the next game, as we both know, as players sort of target you.
Yeah.
Just all those things, integrity, the ability just to get up and work, the ability to work when you're tired, and things aren't going for you. Just all those things that we might take for granted that we learn through this game.
Yeah.
I had some tremendous success hiring rugby players. Three of them left and started their own business. So
there you go. That's proof is in the pudding.
Exactly. That's proof of success.
Yeah. I mean, when I talk about rugby to people, I very rarely talk about rugby. What I talk about is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's all of the hard work and the determination and putting the company, is more important than you. And now that doesn't say that you need a work-life balance. Of course you do. But you
I had no work-life balance. I had rugby.
Yeah.
I had rugby and everything else for 15 or 20 years. I'm sure you did too. It's all I thought about.
Balance, it's
everything else was to support my rugby. Everything else.
Yeah.
John, I just, this announcement of the induction into the Hall of Fame has just been the output from it is something I didn't expect. In your life, now I'm 64, so I've had a few decades here to build relationships for them to come and go, for them to come and grow, and you get into different groups, whether it's for me, it's my Army group or my work group or my rugby group, and the rugby group may be the guys from the Eagles or locally or whatever. You have different spheres that, come into your life in and out. The combined services guys, for example. So because of social media and the ability to send short messages, you get hundreds of messages from people that bring back just the most amazing memories and just the good things, the fun, and so for me, the last few weeks since this announcement, it's just been the greatest, and it's brought back to me what the sport of rugby has meant to me.
Yeah.
And if I may, were you on the tour to Spain, to Benidorm in 1993?
I unfortunately have to say yes, and those stories will not make the final cut.
Yes, indeed. No, we will not. What goes on tour stays on tour. But that's going to be sort of the premise of my 5-minute speech at the Hall of Fame.
Great.
So in short,
what a tour, by the way.
In 1993, the USA Eagles Sevens team men and the USA Eagles Sevens team women traveled and played together and played in the Benidorm Sevens. as a prep for the Sevens World Cup. And back in those days, you know, women's rugby was a different sport demographically than it is now. I don't want to get myself in political incorrectness, but it was a different sport socially.
You've supported women rugby your whole life.
Well, this is maybe part of the reason. So
exactly.
So at the start of the tour, we were to meet in this bar at JFK, and I remember walking in, and the guys were on one side, and the women were on the other side. This huge bar, and the tension, you could cut it with a knife. I mean, you know, just like, oh my God, it was just weird. And then Steve Finkel, man, what a guy! I mean, what a guy! He goes, guys, get an extra beer. We're going over and meeting them.
Right.
And so we all got extra beer. We went over, handed our counterpart a beer, started talking, whatever. And you know, for me, women's rugby, I never would have even. I never even would have if that hadn't happened. I probably never would have considered, you know, the sport to have the potential, what it can do for the United States now, and what, you know, and what it's done and how it's grown. And so it just was so this tour 10 days later, on the way back, the boys and girls were sitting boy girl on the tour, and we had done everything together. We had met each other, became friends, became close. And the bottom line of the whole tour was, these are rugby players. They're not women rugby players. They're not, you know, whatever, however you wanted to describe. They're rugby players, and they're playing the exact same sport for the exact same reason we are. And it was that time where I'm like, let's go, you know, let's and I've thought for many years, you know, in terms of how we're going to grow the sport in the United States. You know, the concept of playing a men and women's doubleheader at the test level it's just like a no-brainer for me. I mean, there's certain reasons why you wouldn't do it, but like, why would you shut out 50% of your possible audience? And now, of course, you got the Ilona Maher effect, which has just been awesome. Yeah. And you know, they had 11,000 people at Kansas City the other day. So there's no secret that people can and want to watch rugby in the United States. We just need to be able to present it to them in a manner in which, you know, we can consistently grow the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I still consider myself good friends with literally every person on that team. We still keep in contact. I mean,
absolutely. You know, the locks from hell, the locks from hell, Tara.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that tour was just a kind of a defining moment, not as a rugby person, but as a human being. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. You know, in terms of acceptance and inclusivity and all diversity, all those things we talk about now, we got to experience that education in a snapshot of a 10-day rugby trip, and that was monumental. And we didn't even know it was happening at the time, right? Didn't even know it was happening.
There we go. No, it was fantastic.
As you have suggested, no details will be shared.
Oh no, by either team,
right? Yeah, they got more secrets than we do. For sure.
They have our secrets and we have theirs. It's an even playing field.
Yes, indeed.
So you went into your business. You have a very successful business, but rugby has called you back, literally.
Yeah.
You are the voice of the Seawolves.
I am. You know, I kind of got back into rugby in the mid 2010s. We had just been beaten by South Africa in the World Cup, 64-0. And our players were walking at the end of the game. And I was watching the game. I was with a bunch of South Africans in London at the game. We'd had way too many beers to drink, and they just started doing their condescending thing. You know, you guys the sleeping giant will awake one day, and all the condescending things. And I just snapped. I just absolutely snapped. I just said, no, enough of this. Because I remember those condescending days when we played. And it's hard. It's hard to represent the United States and play rugby and compete against England and Australia and New Zealand. I mean, it's you could describe it in much more difficult words than hard. It's next to impossible for all the reasons, for so many reasons. So we need to respect every team that goes out and plays. Every player and every team, every Eagle team that goes out and plays in these brutal games.
Yeah.
But we've got to take advantage of every single one of them. So anyway, 64-0. I called up the Dan Lyle, who's the U.S. player that I probably admire most as an international player who made the most impact on the game as an American player. I called Dan, and I didn't know Dan well at the time, but I called him as a concerned Eagle, and I know he's in the sport professionally now, in the entertainment side, in the hosting side, and we just talked about what happened during my era, what happened during his era, and what was going on at that time, and the leadership that was involved at the board level, and it wasn't good. And ultimately, it led to the bankruptcy of USA Rugby, and I've been able to participate now. I'm on the International Athlete Committee. I'm on the Discipline and Grievance Committee of USA Rugby, and I've been able to watch, because of the International Athlete Committee. Dennis Shanaher is on the committee, but he's also a board member.
Yeah,
and that guy, I'll tell you what a job he's done for the USA Rugby community behind the scenes as a board member. So he briefs us every month on what's going on, and I think USA Rugby's in a much better position than it has been, and I think the momentum moving forward is good. And I think in July, this is going to be really exciting to see where we stand up against an England team that isn't going to be at full strength and could possibly be beatable by an Eagle team, by an Eagle team that's really significantly improved.
Yeah,
and being very well coached and managed by Scott. And of course, you got the women's game as well. It's going to be fantastic. What a weekend it's going to be. But I think that also the 50-year gala is going to be pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see where, to hear what the current leadership has to say and where we're going, where they think we're going. I've got my own ideas, but
you always have.
Yes,
You've always
indeed.
had your own ideas.
Yes, indeed.
No, that weekend is going to be great. On the Thursday, it's going to be the 50th anniversary of USA Rugby, Thursday, July 17th. In Washington, D.C., and then Friday the 18th is the Hall of Fame ceremony presented by Major League Rugby at the Mayflower Hotel. That's going to be fantastic. And then the doubleheader, as we had spoken about early in the broadcast here, the podcast, a doubleheader of men's and women's games.
Oh, fantastic. It's just going to be so great.
Yeah, men versus England, women versus Fiji.
Yeah,
boom.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Long.
Yeah. I just think we should just do so much more of that. I know we got to sign off, John. Another idea, I think we should bring back the Canada-USA relationship, and we should have one super weekend in the year, and it might be home and home, where the men and women play the senior teams, under 23s, and maybe under 19s, whatever it is, under 20s, and have that we've got a natural partner up north that we should take advantage of and compete against. And I just think we could create some sort of, weekend event and have it in the same place where you can build over 5 or 6 years a fan base for the U.S. Eagles.
Well,
I don't think we get that moving around and around. Yeah. But you had brought up the Seawolves. I am absolutely loving being the announcer for the Seawolves. I think one day, I forget how it sort of happened. The guy that was doing it needed, someone, he was sick or something like that. They needed someone. So they asked me. And I think the key moment that really shifted for me was, I think I explained a penalty over the announcing system. Or I explained why they were kicking to touch as opposed to going for goal. Something that public announcers generally wouldn't do. But I was like, we've got so many fans of the Seawolves that have really no idea of the rules, but they love the team, they love the atmosphere, they love the contact. So as an announcer, I sort of talk through the decisions the referee makes. Yeah. And the feedback that I've gotten from the fan base has been awesome. they're just like, that's great. So I love doing it. And it's,
Yeah.
great to get that feedback. And the Seawolves ownership group has just done a super job. I mean, they consistently for the last 8 years have just tried to improve the product on and off the field. The key one being off the field, and they've just done a great job. I have so much respect for those guys, because it could be an empty money pit by the time they're done. But
Right.
a lot of respect for the ownership, and thanks to the MLR for hosting your event.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been a great partner as well. Wow, you took us on quite a journey, TR. It has been a fantastic ride here.
John, thanks for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be seeing you in July, if not beforehand. And all the best, my friend.
Yes, sir. I'll see you. Can't wait. It's good. It's just going to be a magical weekend. I really appreciate it, John. And I, getting the call from you about the Hall of Fame. It would have been great from Viz. It would have been great from Viz, who was a competitor and a teammate. But wonderful getting from you. I have such great memories with you.
Absolutely, my friend.
Yeah, and those won't be discussed either.
No,
see you, my man.
All right.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.